Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and to today's episode of Try and Feed My Family of 6 on $5-ish or so. If you are new around here, my name is Christine. Welcome to the fun and shenanigans. I have done several videos like this already. I will leave a playlist down below if you want to check that out after this video is over. Today, instead of Dollar Tree, we are going to hit up my local Winco. Some things are pretty inexpensive there, and I want to see what we can do with our $5 or so. Come along with me today as I try and make dinner for 6 people for $5. Let's go. A lot of the time when I do these challenges, I have no idea what I'm going to make when I walk into the store. But today I knew I wanted to show you guys a homemade pasta and marinara sauce. So I went for the most important ingredients. And to start off with my sauce, I needed an onion and garlic. They don't cost very much. And sauteing those with a little bit of olive oil or butter is a great way to impart some wonderful flavor. Do need some chicken stock, but I'm not going to be able to buy all of the ingredients to make it. So this chicken bouillon is very inexpensive and goes a very long way when it comes to cooking in your house and getting started. Look, if you don't want to make your own stock or buy the prepackaged cans, which can be expensive, this is totally acceptable. I had kind of a hiccup because I wanted this large can of diced tomatoes for 94 cents, and as you can see, it was completely gone. I walked up and down the aisle about 10 times trying to find petite diced tomatoes. I didn't want a tomato sauce, and I wanted the store brand because I wanted to show you that you can get the off brand, it's cheaper, and you can make it taste just as delicious. But for some reason, they were sold out. They didn't get more in stock. I was not the only person looking. Next up, I needed some flour to make my pasta. So I headed over to the baking aisle, and the cheapest bag of flour for the best deal was the 5-pound bag, I believe, for $1.22. It ended up being way more flour than I needed, but it was fine. And then, of course, I had to get 1 dozen eggs as well. I am back from Winco, and here are my items, and I believe I spent a whopping $6.77, which is definitely more than I wanted to because of the tomato issue that I found in the store. My friends, I don't know where were all of the canned tomatoes. I didn't even mean to get crushed tomatoes. I wanted to get whole tomatoes and use that, so that's unfortunate, and like mash them myself, but they were so expensive. At least this one was a full $1 cheaper, but I even wanted to get the store brand and I couldn't get that. So sometimes that's just the way it goes. What I will say is I do know that I will have extra leftover ingredients when this whole thing is over, because I'm definitely not gonna need the full dozen eggs. I'm definitely not gonna need all of this flour or all of this. I'll have some left, and I'll have a little bit of garlic left. So I will have some things that could be used in another meal. But what I wanted to do was show how inexpensive it could be to make more of a gourmet meal. Don't be scared. We are going to get started by making our own pasta. Hold on to your hats. Here we go. It's actually very inexpensive to make. It's a good skill to have. Truthfully, with the amount of flour I have here and the amount of eggs I have here, you can make several batches. Technically, this could even make, not the sauce, but your basic pantry staples, because I consider flour and eggs to be kind of a staple. You can make homemade pasta like whenever. I did share a, let's call it cheaper and quicker pasta recipe on my last extreme grocery budget challenge, because you only need 2 eggs to do that. This pasta recipe I like better. I think it tastes better, but it uses significantly more eggs. Keep that in mind when you're thinking about your budget. Fortunately for me in my area, eggs are very, very cheap right now, like 80 cents a dozen. It's amazing. The tools I will be using. My food processor over here is what I will use to mix my dough. You can use anything to mix your dough, a mixer of any kind. You can do it by hand. It's been done that way for centuries. If you have a bread maker, they do have a dough function which you can use. You can't really overmix this. You want it to kind of go a long time to develop the gluten in the flour to give it that stretch and pull back when you're making pasta. And the other tool I will be using, my pasta rollout machine, which Dave found for me. I did not use this in my last video. I just used a rolling pin. If you guys want to see how to do that, I will leave that video below for you. But I picked this up a very long time ago. It's at least 15 years old. Back then they cost about $15. It hooks to your counter and it rolls your pasta very, very thin. And you can also switch it out with these slicer blade attachments to get a very thin spaghetti. Once my dough's ready, I'll kind of put this together and show it to you. And if you guys want to get one of these, any kitchen store should have one. And I'll also link a similar one to this on Amazon. Very, very cheap. Before I get started, I do need to pull this back a little bit. I can't stand cooking with my hair down, and then my hair falls out all the time, and I don't want like my hair in the food, yuck. With our flour, I have 1 1/4 cup of flour. This is the recipe I like to use when I make homemade ravioli, so you can make this pasta dough just like this, and then roll it out into sheets and fill it with cheese. I would recommend cheese, or whatever, sausage, spinach, whatever ravioli filling you like. Okay, it's a loose 1 1/4 cup, okay? It's really more about the texture and not about the measurement, because, I mean, if it's raining outside, I'll need more flour. If it's dry in your area, you'll need less flour. I'll be using 1 large egg and 6 egg yolks in this recipe, so I do need to separate out my yolks and whites. If you've never done it before, it's very easy. There's a couple ways to do it. You can use the eggshell itself just by going back and forth like this, okay? And then you have the yolk right there. So there's 1 yolk like this, and just kind of shake it around until the white goes through and you've got the yolk in your hand. Of course, you will be much more sticky this way. I usually do the eggshell way. It's kind of my preferred method, but you will get more white out by doing it this way. Once you're done, do not toss your egg whites. You can mix these up with some whole eggs and make an omelet. You can just do cooked egg whites if you're doing that bro diet and you need some more protein, so don't get rid of these. You can still use these. You can make an angel food cake, okay? Save this. 1 1/2 teaspoons of olive oil, although I'm not going to measure it. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball that. If you have milk, about 1 tablespoon of milk. If you don't, 1 tablespoon of water will be just fine. I actually don't have milk, so we'll use water. You want to knead this for 10 minutes or so, 5 to 10 minutes, until it forms a ball. Mine's on the dough function right now, and if it looks really sticky, we're gonna add a little bit more flour, but I'm just gonna hold off and kind of watch it. Once it's done doing this, oh look, it's making a ball. We're gonna let it rest for about 30 minutes. I wiped off my counter before we started. What is it about a really clean kitchen that makes me want to mess it up? Is that just me? Is that you? I have a really clean kitchen and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can make stuff in there. This dough, because it has so many yolks in it, will be very yellow in color. It is not sticky at all. This should not be sticky. Like, I can do this and it is not sticky, but it does feel very, very tight. Like, when I push it, it bounces back. It's very elastic. Set this on the counter, plastic wrap over it. See you back in 30 minutes. Here is my pasta roller. You roll it like this with this little crank. It just hooks onto your counter. And this piece will make the space in between here, the thickness of the pasta, get smaller and smaller and smaller. So you can make it quite small, but we'll start with it on the big side like this. And I did not cover my pasta tight enough because it's a little dry on top, but that will be fine. It will be fine. So it doesn't stick, you might want a little bit of flour. Probably don't need very much though. Cranking it through like this. Trying to get it into a thin sheet. This is actually like way too thick. It should be, I should have rolled it out first a little bit, but I feel like I'm trying to hurry a little bit. Okay, so it's this thick now, and we'll go again. So now that I've rolled that out, I can go a couple smaller, maybe 1 or 2 smaller, and then it'll go thinner this time. And every time you go through, it'll be thinner and thinner and thinner until you get to the smallest. Added the cutting piece, and I just take the handle off and attach it to wherever I want, however thick I want my pasta to be. So this top one up here is more like a spaghetti or an angel hair, and then this thicker one is a fettuccine, which I think I will do. I just think a thicker pasta works really, really nicely for a homemade dish. So all I'm gonna do is run it through here and it'll cut it into slices for me. Oddly satisfying. So I'm just gonna hang these up.
Holding on to this, holding on. I know I'm holding on to this.
All my pasta is cut and drying like this. I am going to start my sauce. And truly all you need for a really nice marinara is garlic, onion, chicken broth or white wine or both, some tomatoes of some kind. We'll chop this and get to sauteing. I have a stainless steel pan right here that's deep enough to hold all of my sauce. I have a little bit of olive oil. This is already hot. Here we go. Throw in my diced onions. I love that. It sounds like they're cheering for me. Yay, Christine! That may have been a little too hot. Saute for a few minutes until translucent. Once your onions are done, you will add your garlic. I have about 5 cloves of garlic here. If you don't have a lot of money, spend your money on high flavor items like garlic. Stir that around for like 1 minute. You do not want to let it go too long because garlic gets very bitter when it burns, and it burns quickly, so keep an eye on it. Once that has had time to do its thing, we are going to add the entire can of tomatoes. Hopefully it's diced tomatoes. I think this is crushed tomatoes. And here I have 1 cup of water, and I did a half of one of those bouillon cubes. Those, of course, homemade chicken stock is better. If you have the money for some white wine, that would work as well. Bring that up to a simmer. We are going to add some salt, some pepper, something to cut the acidity of the tomatoes. I find canned tomatoes extremely acidic. So you can use baking soda, that's a little trick, or like a teaspoon to a tablespoon of sugar. I actually don't prefer the flavor of the baking soda trick, so we're using sugar. And just for fun, I'm gonna put in some crushed red pepper flakes. This is not necessary, you can totally leave it out. I just like the little zing it gives. My friends, that's all there is to this. Now I do wanna let this simmer for about 20 minutes for the flavors to come together. Taste for salt and pepper, please taste for salt and pepper. And while this simmers, I'm gonna heat up a pot of water to cook my pasta. Pasta pot is now boiling. As you can kind of see the steam here, I will salt my water heavily. They always say you want your pasta water to like taste like seawater, like the ocean. And here comes my pasta. And this does not take very long, probably 3 to 4 minutes most. As you can see, my amount of pasta I made only serves 4. However, my sauce that I made, I think can easily serve 3 more. So I did miscalculate as far as the pasta amount goes, but I do have enough food to make more pasta, like I said earlier in the video. So this flour container is still mostly full, and I still have 5 more eggs. So if I use my other pasta recipe, 2 more batches of pasta, I think this could easily feed 8. I did taste my sauce for salt, and it was delicious. I highly recommend doing something like that. And if you feel like your food is like, oh, something's missing, it's most likely salt or fat of some kind, which is why restaurant food tastes so good. I have worked at several restaurants. You would not believe the amount of fat and the amount of salt that they put into your food. I really love this simple marinara sauce. I feel like it's good on so many different things. I've used this sauce on an eggplant parmesan before. It was so good. And there's just something about homemade pasta that is so filling. I find it personally way more filling than store-bought pasta. I don't know why, it's so good. And if you have some Parmesan cheese laying around, or if you have enough money to purchase some, that is a fantastic addition to put on the top of this. And because I have some leftover ingredients, Like the flour, I have most of this chicken bouillon package left over. And you guys remember my egg whites, right? I see right here, you can take this flour and this chicken bouillon, and you can make dumplings out of the flour, water, salt, and pepper. That's all you need to make dumplings. Put it in some chicken broth that's been mixed, the chicken bouillon that's been mixed with water. You can have like a chicken dumpling soup minus the chicken. You can use these egg whites and you can make an angel food cake with just some powdered sugar and whip this a lot. There's a couple of other ingredients, but not many. If you had a bag of pinto beans and a bag of rice, very, very cheap. You can throw in these bouillon cubes into your pinto beans as they cook, add some seasoned salt, top it over the rice, you got a couple more meals. So just by buying a few pantry staples and thinking outside the box, you can really come up with a lot of meals for not that much money. So I'm gonna finish my pasta over here and I'll see you guys in the next video.